All right, good morning. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as it says on the email here, somehow the video yesterday became corrupted and seems to be inaccessible. So I'm retaping right now, and I'm using Camtasia Studio, so it should run smoothly. I'm probably going to break this up into 3 different lectures. I will lecture on Chapter 2, take a little break, Chapter 3, take a little break, and then start to do that test that we were working on yesterday. All right. My dog's in the background. Hopefully she won't start barking. If she does, I might have to take her outside. So just so you know that. All right, let's get going. All right, so again, Chapter 2. I tried to do this 2 different ways yesterday. First, I started typing everything in. Then I looked at the completed project, and I've decided to kind of do a hybrid between the two, where what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy code in. Okay, so what we have in here is developing a one-page app. It's the Future Value app. We learn how to create it, how to run the web app and fix errors, how to work with a model, how to organize files for review, and how to validate. So let's just get to it. Now, as far as the creation, what I have done, all I have done, is I created a brand new folder called FV for Future Value Redo. So I'm going to start up Visual Studio. I'm going to choose Create a New Project. Again, it seems to be easier if you have to go with C#, Windows, and Web. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type in MVC, and it's going to give me my MVC ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller. I want that one. So next, I have to choose this. So I'm just going to call this again Future Value, and I'm going to leave the same name for both the project and for the solution. The location, I'm going to put it in my FV redo and click Next. Our framework will be 6.0. I do not need authentication. Technically, again, the configure for HTTPS doesn't matter. I'll just leave it on, and I'll click Create. This should go through the steps to create our project. Remember, we'll have our model folder, our views folder, our controllers folder, our WW root. Okay? We don't have any data folder in here because we did not add any authentication and authorization. So I'm going to close this and start following what's in the book. So we did come in, we started the new app. Hopefully by now you're comfortable with that. Really nothing fantastic about it. That's the one I chose. Again, in this book, they talk both about using the template I just showed you or an empty template. And as it says there, when you use the one shown, typically the first thing we're going to do is remove a bunch of files. We're going to do that. I'm just going to follow their lead in here. So we're going to configure the web app. So I did all this. I called it Future Value. Of course, my location was different. And I called this Future Value as well. All right, it was 6.0, no authentication. And I kept the configure HTTPS going because that's what they did. All right, nothing new there. So setting up the folders. As it says, expand the controllers folder. I'm just going to do these one at a time. Expand controllers and delete all the files. Well, there's only one. So expand the controllers folder and remove the home controller. Whoops, try that again. Delete. And now my controllers folder is empty. All right, next. We want to expand the models folder and delete everything that's in there. You can see these are both empty. There's no arrow there, meaning there's nothing in them. Finally, we're supposed to go down to the views folder. I think that was next. Delete all the files, but don't delete the folders. Okay. So delete the view imports and delete the view start. And then inside of shared, remove the layout, remove the validation, remove the error. So right now, basically, I have the equivalent of almost of an empty project. I didn't run it first. There was really no reason to do that. Okay, so let's get going. We're now working with the empty template, so this is moot. I've done all three of these steps here. All right, so the first thing they want us to do is add a controller. Okay, as it says, it's common to place the controller classes in a namespace of controller. So in just a minute, the home controller will be in futureValue.controllers by default. When I say by default, it means because that's where we're going to put it. All right. It says if a method of the controller runs in response to get or post, for example, it's an action method. So we're going to write some of those. We're not going to put much code in here. We're going to use what's called the view bag, which is a semi-global thing that allows us to share data between controllers and views. We're going to do that, and we're going to put in two things into the view bag, two properties. We're going to have a name property that they set to Mary and an FV property for future value that they just set to, I believe it's $99,999.99. As it says, the view bag has dynamic property or uses dynamic properties to get and set. All right, and we're going to use the view method to return the result. Okay, so let's run through this. I've copied all the code and I've got it in a notepad file. So there's not much to put in here anyway, but so let's go in and create a new controller. So I'm going to right mouse click on the controllers folder. I'm going to choose add controller and I'm going to choose MVC controller empty. All right. So right mouse click, add controller, and we want MVC empty. Click add. It's going to be called home controller by default, and I believe that's what we want. Yep, home controller right there. So I can just click add. I don't want to take any chances of screwing up any code. So again, I've already got, basically I've copied over all the code here. So all I really want, well, we're going to change that later, I guess. So let me put these two lines in. So it'll be viewbag.name and viewbag.fv. Notice that it recognizes that. So .name, I'm just making up a property here called name and setting it equal to Mary. And then another viewbag property, .fv for future value that we're setting equal to 99999.99. That's it. Okay, so file, save all, and let's continue on. All right, so we did this. Again, we right mouse clicked on the controllers folder. We chose add controller. The one we chose was MVC controller empty. We didn't have to name it because it was already called home controller. And you'll notice it's in a namespace, future value .controllers. In just a minute, we're going to do our models, and it'll be in a namespace, future value .models. All right, the controller must inherit, or you have a using statement of Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC. Here's our action method. So right now this is going to be what would be returned basically. All right, when I say it's going to be returned into the view. We have to do some work yet with the views to actually make that show. All right, so next again, as it says, we're going to add this razor view. And a razor view is one of those .cs HTML files, meaning it allows us to combine C# and HTML code together. When we want to put in C# statements, we declare a razor block, and that'll be using the @ sign. All right. And To evaluate an expression, again, we can code the expression with an @ sign. If we're going to have multiple lines, we put those inside of curly braces. The rest of the file that's in here will be just, virtually, it will be just CSS. I should say HTML. So a razor view contains, again, C# and HTML. That's why you get the extension. As mentioned, it uses server-side code to embed C#, very similar to the JSX stuff we did last semester. All right. To execute one or more statements, you make the razor code block an @ sign, and if you've got multiple statements, they go in curly braces. So not a lot we have to do in here. Okay, but let's knock this down. And as it says, what we will want to do right here is in the Solution Explorer. Just going to make this tough because I got the Solution Explorer over here. I don't want to do that. Let's move this over there. All right. So in the Solution Explorer, we want to right mouse click on the Views Home folder. Okay. Just going to try to again follow their lead. And select Add View. Okay. Next thing it asks is what kind of a view do we want to add, and as you can see here, we choose the razor view empty and select Add, and we're going to name this Index. It is named Index by default, so we don't have to change anything, so we can just click Add. All right, not much in here right now. All right, so again, rather than me having to do a lot of typing, here's the index. Now it's got a lot of stuff in here that we're not going to use for a while. So let's see what actually they put in there and what's in there right now. So this is what we have in here right now, basically nothing. And what we want in here is this. All right. I wish it was easy that I could just copy information out of here, but it doesn't let me do that. If I highlight it all like this, just grab some of it so you can see it. Now, even if I just grab this, see there's no copy. If I right mouse click, there's nothing to do to copy. Hopefully this is going to remain here, but if it doesn't, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what I'll do. So I want that to stay here. So let me move this down. There we go. All right. So I'm going to get rid of all this that's here. And we're going to do this. And we're going to say layout equal null. There is no layout right now. Hopefully I don't have to do too much typing here. So see, am I missing anything? Nope. Now this is kind of weird here. It doesn't let me put in a p tag. However, when I do come over here and put in this customer name, I'm using the view bag here, so I do need the @ sign, and it's viewbag.name. All right. Now when I do come through here, because everything else is done, let me expand this. I can manually go in and change that to a P, and then it works. I don't know why it does that. I have no idea. So this will say future value, and we'll bring up FV, which is what we created earlier. So right now, this is our view. Not a whole heck of a lot. Technically, if we ran it now, it should show Mary, and it should show $99,999.99. They also wanted us to do a .toString on this with C2. Okay. All right. I believe that's everything. So this is what I just put in. Again, as mentioned, the Razor View engine uses server-side code to embed C# within this. Okay, we had one block, so to speak. It only had one line in it, but technically I don't even know if we needed to put that in curly braces or not. Okay. So next we want to work about how to configure the middleware for the pipeline. Again, we have to make sure that our system files are set up. I'm going to let you give a read of this one on your own. So this is the one, as it says, that's generated by the MVC template. Okay, so there was nothing special that I did here, but what we can do is we can look and make sure that the one that was generated is the same one that we have. So let me bring this back up. Okay, it should be the same, I believe. So let's do this. We'll bring this over here. And you can see var builder, builder services, app build, configure the pipeline, check in here, give the exception handling. Okay, and that is the same stuff. Set up our routing. And when you look in here, what it says is this is the file that configures the middleware. So again, this is the behind the scenes stuff. If you remember back in chapter 1, we looked at that middleware and pipeline, and you saw when something worked as opposed to when something didn't work. So as mentioned here, the code generated by default first checks whether the web hosting environment is development, and if it isn't, it configures it for a production environment. And that map controller route is going to set the default controller to be the home controller and the default action to be index. That's what we want. So as it says, as a result, when the app starts, it calls the index method. Now, I believe we are going to come in here now and actually run this to see what we have. Okay, so let me come back to here. Let me do a file save all. I can close this. I don't need it at all. And again, what should happen is when we run this, this is what should run. So let's see if indeed that's the case. I could be wrong here. As I oft-time am. So this is really all we have. And actually the reason for this is we haven't built the form yet that's got our pieces on it. So we just got the welcome, etc. Okay? And don't worry about it. It's going to work in just a couple minutes. Close that. And let's jump back into the book. All right. Typically, the type most errors you're going to get most often are going to be syntax errors. You know this from when we had the C# class. They give an example here of typing view bags as opposed to view bag. Now, when we get into chapter 5, we'll maybe delve into this a little more than we did in the C# class, because we're going to talk about debugging, breakpoints again, and we'll talk about watch windows and local windows, etc. All right, the next thing we want to do is add our model. Our model typically has two different things in it. It has our database info, our table info, etc., and it has our business logic. We don't have a database in this one, so all we're going to have is the business logic. And for the controller, this code by convention says that you name your controller and you put the word controller at the end. With the model, Okay, with the model, you can put the word model on the end, but you really don't have to. So we're going to add a model right now, and we'll follow their lead again, and we'll call it future value model. Okay, so bring this up so I can follow these steps once again. So I'm back to here, and I can actually close this, and I'm going to right mouse click and choose add, and here we want class, and we're going to call this future value model.cs, exactly what they call it. And as you can see here, hopefully you can see that there's 3 properties in here. All right, so what we're having here then is a public. Remember, there's a shortcut here. You can type in prop, the word prop, and hit tab twice. All right, and this is going to be a decimal, public decimal, and that's going to be monthly investment. I'm creating auto implement properties right here. That's what these are called. All right, we're also going to have another decimal that's going to be called yearly interest rate. And finally, we're going to have an int, which is going to be called years. Okay, so those are our 3 properties. All righty. If we wanted to put in right here, if we did want to put in a constructor, we could just type in public class future value model paren, and then curly curly. There's a constructor, and it would work. It might show an error here. Don't worry about it. It'll work. All right. Or there's a shortcut for doing this where we could type in CTOR and hit tab, and it'll do it as well. I gave it the wrong name before. Okay, I just called it future value instead of future value model. Okay, we're not told to add that here. Instead, we're told to add a method, and that method is right here. So I'm going to add that public decimal calculate future value. Okay, and at the end we're going to want to return future value. It's going to give me an error because that hasn't been declared yet, but we'll declare it right now. So int months equal years times 12, because there's 12 months in a year, of course. Decimal monthly interest rate equals yearly interest rate divided by 12 divided by 100, so we can actually put in whole numbers there. It's 100. And what do we have next? We need another decimal here. Future value. Set that equal to 0 because we haven't done any calculations yet. That's what we're going to return. All right, then we have our for loop. And we have just basically one line of code in here, which is our calculation. So our future value is going to be equal to future value plus our monthly investment, and that will be times, oops, one plus, let's just do it the way they did it here. So we'll put in here 1 plus the monthly interest rate. right, and then again we are returning future value. Okay, so that's all of the code that we need to put in here for our model. So this model, not only does it have fields that could potentially be used in a database, but it has a method in it. Now, I don't think there's going to be a time when we actually create a database that we're going to also have a method in here. We'll get into that at a later time. So a model, as you say, is a regular C# class that models the data for the app. Typically, it's stored in the models folder. Maybe you saw that. Namespace future models.model. And a model can't have the same name as the namespace itself. All right. Now, before we go in and add this Razor imports page, which we're going to do next, it's going to take a break just for a second here. Oops. Try that again.